so as we were planning today's webinar, we knew that we were going to, review what's happened in December, but we really didn't want to stop there. And the reason that is because over the last year, we all know that there's been, a lot of enhancements around the new UI, around the new mobile and that sort of thing. So, we didn't want to stop with just December, because October and December, there were some really big releases around the UI updates and things like that. So for today's webinar, yeah, definitely we're going to talk about some admin releases, some new reports, and some things like that that have been released for December, and some new functionality. But we're going to also kind of pull in a lot of what's been happening with the new UI related to employee and manager interaction with the system. So we're really excited about today's webinar, because you're going to really get that day in the life of using strictly the new UI. Okay, we're going to also talk a little bit about the mobile also, which kind of goes hand in hand with the new UI releases. So let's just go ahead and kind of talk a little bit about how you can find out information, what's happened with releases over the, the last several releases, as well as, updates, to user guides and things like that. So for all of that information, you're going to go to help .beyondpay.com. You can also log into the system and go to your service provider documents. There you can download all of the release notes, that's been, been pushed out, and then the user guides, and especially on the new UI, you can take a look at those also. So don't forget to look at that detail, because during this webinar, we're not going to be going into every detail of what's been released in December. So why are we spending so much time, on this new UI and enrolling these new things out related to the new UI? So really, in a nutshell, we've got to, have the system help you guys engage employees. So, in order to collect the data that you need from employees, it's got to be easy to log in. And then, once you have that data, time data and onboarding information and that sort of thing, benefits information, once you have that data, you need to do something with it. Your managers might need to do something with it. You as company administrators, are going to need to do something with it. And up until this new UI, it's really just, I don't want to say just data, because there's been a lot of value in the system, but we're taking it to the next level with charts and graphs to give you a lot more insight into actually what's happening within the system. So, number one, engaging those employees, getting them in the system, making it quick, making it easy, very intuitive, with dashboards and things like that, and then giving them the insight into the system so that they can quickly do their job and then get on about their day. So in a nutshell, that's really the reason for the new UI. And there's a lot of other reasons too, but that's really it, to make it easy for your employees and your managers. We're also going to today talk, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about, some other enhancements that aren't necessarily geared toward just the UI, but I just wanted to bring this kind of up, what's the reason we're doing all of this? So I promise I'm not going to kill you with death by PowerPoint, just a couple more slides here. So, Jonathan Tanis, he did a webinar around the charts and around the graphs, and, some ways that you can build those for the October release. And he had touched on, like, how can you go ahead and get that exposure to the new UI. So I'm just going to kind of take that and take it a little bit of a step further and say, if you're logged in or at the login screen, if you look at the browser address, you'll see a .login in that browser address. And you can actually change that to a .hcm and be able to get a little bit of a view of of what you're going to see today. However, keep in mind, there's not really been a lot of configuration, or potentially not a lot of configuration done, so your views are not going to look like what you're going to see today. So if you do go, make that change to your browser address, let your CSR know that you're interested, that you want to, you want to get some, some exposure to the new UI, and they'll, help you and start talking, for the next, talking to you about the next steps to roll this out. Also, at the very end of this webinar, as Liz mentioned, there's going to be a survey. It's really like a super simple survey. Takes just a couple seconds to complete, but it's going to ask you if you are interested to learn more about to roll out the to roll out the new UI. And if you don't want to have to make a phone call to your CSR, just respond to that survey. We'll reach out to you and make sure that you get connected with the UI and get started. Another reason to go ahead and take advantage of rolling out the new UI is because we're going to configure it at no cost for the early adopters. So go ahead and take advantage of that. We're going to build these charts and graphs that we're going to be looking at. We're going to do that for you at basically free. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to start with making it easier for your employees to get into the system. And there's quite a few different ways that we're doing this and have been doing this. A single sign-on with Google. This actually prevents or replaces basically the need to request a code. You're going to actually see me walk through this in just a second. Also, Google Authenticator, it does the same thing. Both of these have been available. It's not new in the December release. They're fairly new, as far as the single sign-on. But the Google Authenticator has been around for a while. The Google Authenticator is really you download an app, and when you're ready to log into the system, you just pick up your phone and put in the code. You don't have to request it being sent. So it just makes it a little bit easier. These two things do. But then we take it to the next level is if the device allows you to, to use your fingerprint, or the device can do facial recognition, then the system supports that now. So those are fairly new releases. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the system. So as Liz said, I was in HR before, for many years. And, really the life cycle of an employee starts before they're an employee. It starts at the applicant stage. And the system has had applicant tracking for quite some time. However, with the new UI, there's been a lot of enhancements to the applicant tracking, and making it really giving the applicant what they need to know before they apply for a position, and then even, as you'll see, some enhancements for the managers to decide if this candidate that's applied for the position is a good fit. So there's been a lot of enhancements around this with the new UI over the course of a period of time. So if you kind of use your imagination for a second, if you think about, and someone that may not be happy in a job that they're currently in, maybe they're sitting on their couch, just kind of searching for a position. Maybe they're on Indeed, maybe they're on a particular website. So they're out there looking for a job. They found a job that they want to apply to, and they go ahead and click on that job, that link, regardless of where, that link is. They're going to click on the link. They're going to see some details, and then they can start applying for the job. So the screen that you're seeing on the screen at this point, this is actually Workforce Ready. So we have the ability to build into Workforce Ready the applicant job descriptions, details about a position, and then actually have a very configurable. Oh, okay, so sorry about that. I don't think I was sharing my screen. Not sure. what happened there, but I'll go ahead and show my screen. Haven't gone too far. I did show a PowerPoint. We'll make sure that you get a copy of the PowerPoint, you know, after this webinar. Okay, so this is actually the system, as I was saying. This is Workforce Ready that we're looking at, but we're looking at it from the applicant's perspective. So this is a job description that the candidate, you know, would be looking on Indeed. As I said, they could see, you know, the link, they click on it, and then they can review the details of the job description, and then just simply go ahead and apply. Because this is the Workforce Ready system, as the applicant actually starts completing the information on their application, you're able to, as an administrator or as a hiring manager, see the details. So, you know, the configuration, the customization per job, you know, these are just some questions that can be asked, some custom questions based on the job. So we'll go ahead and continue. So I've already completed the majority of this application. I didn't want to take the time to complete the application, but as you can see, I'm at 91%. And the details that I've already put in are already available for that hiring manager, even though I haven't actually applied. But as an applicant, maybe I want to go ahead and, you know, see where I'm at. You know, you can see I've already checked all of these boxes off and I'm ready to apply. And once I apply, you know, I'm going to do my electronic signature and all of that. So you can see that it's very easy to see where I'm at in the process with my application. And then, you know, I could also look for additional, you know, jobs, or I can see the applications that I've submitted, you know, in the past. So, you know, again, this is Workforce Ready, and the idea behind enhancements that have occurred with this are to make it easy for the applicant to complete the application, and then from there, easy for the manager to decide to hire that person. So let's go ahead and I'm going to switch over to a different browser here, and we're going to take a look at that manager's process. So new enhancements that have occurred over December and October and Jonathan, on the last webinar and the last review that we did, Jonathan reviewed, you know, the different dashboards that you can have for different users in the new UI. This is the manager logging in, the hiring manager logging into the system. You can see directly on this screen, I've got some tools that are going to help me know what I need to do with these applicants. For purposes of today, you know, we've already, let's just pretend for a second, we've already gone through the review process. I've already identified the candidates that, you know, where they are in the hiring stage, and I'm ready to hire someone. So we're going to go ahead and just click on this number 1. It's an interactive widget, or dashboard widget, if you will. So it brings me into this candidate that I'm ready to hire. And so I want to go ahead and just open the application. And this is a recruiting manager. So this manager doesn't necessarily have permission to just straight out hire someone. They're actually going to request that the applicant is hired. So this is that step. You know, what do you want to do? I want to hire this person to a particular job. And then this would take you to being able to hire this person. You request, and then there's an approval process. So having the dashboard tools allows this manager to easily see what kind of action he needs to take. We're going to get a lot more detailed into some other functions for the manager, but I promised really the life cycle of the employee. Also. So let's go ahead. Now that we'll pretend that the company administrator has already approved this hire, and as soon as they approve this hire, now there's not only an applicant account, there's also an employee account. So we're going to get into the system as an employee. And here you see the Google sign-in. So I don't have a username or a password, and I don't have a code request or anything going on here.
Misty, real quick, I think we're still on the applicant portal view.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Okay, you're able to see hopefully a blank screen with a login screen with the username and password.
Looks good, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So, so here, you can see that there's not a username and a password, but I can just simply sign in. So again, I don't have to use the multi-factor authentication code. I don't have to request a code. It's simply logging me in the system, making that user's interaction, much easier. So as an employee, really almost everything I need to do is found right here. Whatever information I need to know can be found right here on this dashboard. Of course, you can still come over here to the hamburger menu, is what we're calling it with the UI, and see, any favorites or any, specific details related to myself and that sort of thing. But we'll stick to the dashboard for right now. I can see, and these are configurable, as Jonathan mentioned on the last webinar. I can see details related to, hours, current hours, how much time I've accrued for the year, overtime hours. I can see my timesheets. I could go ahead and clock in and clock out. I'll go ahead and go ahead and go into the employee timesheet. Take a look at this. You see some differences in the view of the timesheets. Visually looks, a lot easier to read, is the idea. Make it, easier to understand as employees maneuver in the system. And now we have, the ability, change requests. Not sure if everybody on the call is using them, but change requests are up here. If maybe I can see here I've got some incomplete punches. Maybe I want to request that this is corrected. The new UI supports all of those kinds of things. I bring this up because we're going to get into some charts in a little bit that talk about change requests. Okay, so we'll go back to the dashboard really quick. Employees, of course, can come into, as I mentioned earlier, can come into the system, go ahead and take a look at those balances for time off, request time off directly from here, maneuver around. Do I want to see hours or days, depending on, how you want to allow an employee to see their hours, that could show up. And then we have some vacation. We'll just say we're going to request a full day of vacation because I know I have enough time. And we'll just choose the 31st. Go ahead and submit it. So you can see how all of this functionality, while the system did all of this before, it's just more intuitive. It's the screens that are popping up are really visually better. Okay, you still have your My To Do items. Easily you can get to those to do the items that you need to do on employee onboarding. All of that is still available within the system. And then, of course, your benefits. We've got the widget here that helps with those benefit enrollments and things like that. So the dashboard will continue to be built out, but you'll still have those tools that you're used to. So I'm going to go ahead and switch screens one more time, and I think I get what's going on, so hopefully we don't have the issue with changing screens. Let's see. Okay, so I just switched back over to my manager view. And this is, again, the manager. The employees completed everything that they need to do easily on their dashboard. Now we're going to go ahead and get into a lot of those charts that's going to give you that insight that we had talked about that has been heavily talked about in the last webinar, and then we're going to just continue to talk about charts and graphs and giving you that insight. So while this dashboard is great, there's some, there's some other options across the top here. So as a manager, you're going to want to know who's working right now, right? So we'll go ahead and go in and look at our team. And I can tell that right now I have 27 employees who are clocked in. I can also tell I've got 20 employees who are not. And maybe I'm expecting to have 5 people, working in accounting, but I can see that I've only got 4 in accounting. So I can actually drill down into these charts. So I want to say, why is this one employee? What's going on? Okay, looks like maybe they've clocked out for lunch. Now of course I can drill down into the timesheet and see any notes or anything like that, or I can have some charts, some additional charts to give me some more information. But as you can tell, I'm drilling down into the charts that are on the dashboard to give me that insight into what's actually occurring, so that if I need to take some action, then I can. Okay, so this is just giving me that information on who's here right now. That's important to a manager. Making sure that you have your departments staffed correctly. There's also some reports and charts that can be built related to scheduling and things like that. Some other common items that your managers are going to need to do are, around time. So we're going to give this a second to load. And Liz, can you see my screen? I just want to double check.
Yep, we have all the charts up.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is, the idea behind these charts, again, is to give that insight. And also, in the case of where we're at right now, is I just want to see what I need to do something with. So, I can see that I've got 5 timesheets that have been submitted. I don't want to see the ones that have been approved because I've already taken care of those. In this case, I want to go ahead and go into these 5 timesheets. Drilling down into those, and you can see those 5 employees. And I could obviously, what we're used to doing right now, not using the new UI, is actually opening potentially the timesheets and seeing what's going on directly within the timesheets, or having these columns in the timesheets. And all of that's still possible. But we can actually have these charts now do a little bit of the work for us, where I can see, okay, I've got some overtime. Michael's got some overtime. Here he's got 5.5 hours. That's expected. Okay, I can move on from this chart. No problem with overtime. Holidays, there were some holidays, in this pay period. So there's, some holiday hours potentially. And one thing I don't want to overlook is incomplete punches. So everybody's fine except for Gerald. So I could actually drill down into Gerald and go ahead and open that timesheet and correct that punch. Now at any point, I could have gone ahead and approved everybody but Gerald from those previous screens. So, it really gives you that insight into what's actually occurring in the data, where you're only having to touch what you need to do something with, which is kind of nice. So we'll go back to our time dashboard. Just to review a couple things that are in here. Missing punches, I've got that set up right on my dashboard, so I don't even have to go into, I can just actually go in and correct the punches if I wanted to, throughout the week or throughout the pay period. Change requests. So if there are any, in this case, Michael's got 3 change requests. Correcting some punches, adding some reimbursements, and that sort of thing. Exceptions. Jonathan spent quite a bit of time talking about exceptions and charts and graphs and, around exceptions in the last webinar. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. And we do have a YouTube channel if you haven't, and we can share that, out if you're interested in seeing that last webinar. But, drilling down into exceptions, things that are that is outside of the employee's schedule. Maybe they've punched in early, maybe they've left left early. So, in this case, there's a lot of left earlies. Maybe I want to drill down into this and see what I need to figure out what's going on. Maybe there's a schedule change that needs to happen, or something like that. I can also, which employees are my big, my big late employees. I can drill down into that. I can see that Michael has a lot of exceptions. Maybe it is that his schedule's wrong, or maybe there is an attendance issue. And now we have overtime. You can look at overtime by department. Again, I can drill down similar to what you've seen me already do, but I have that insight right on one screen. And as I click through these charts, it's giving me even more insight. All right, so again, I wanted to give you just a little bit of a high-level overview of kind of some common things related to the manager. All of these tabs across the top offer these same kinds of things. So recruitment, I won't go into recruitment in too much detail, but if I'm looking to hire, someone for a position in the Clinton area or in the Easton area, I can see which candidates are favorable in that area. So I can really drill down into those candidates, and any data that the candidate has keyed in, we're eventually going to be able to have charts as the releases occur over the next period of time. We'll have all of our reporting available. We can have charts to help us get that insight. All right, so I promised, to definitely talk about some specific releases that occurred in December. Some of the things that I've already just reviewed with you, some of those things were in the December release, but some really specific items that I wanted to get into is we'll start with the cost centers. So cost centers, being able to change how a cost center is configured it's actually not new. It was rolled out a while back, and there was a couple little error messages that would pop up, so it was kind of pulled back and some corrections were made to it, and now it's fresh and you're not going to have those kinds of issues. So I just want to refresh everybody's memory on the cost center move because it is pretty valuable. So it is an administrator kind of functionality more than a manager, but we're going to go ahead and go into the cost center and make a change, and we'll walk through this. So I'm just opening up the department cost center in the settings of the system. So maybe I have marketing, bill, and that was the structure of this cost center when I built it. Or maybe I accidentally didn't make it a child of one of the cost centers. Maybe I want to go ahead and make this marketing fall under sales. So I'm just simply going to highlight marketing and click the button in the top that says move. So where do I want to move it? I just choose where I want to move it. I'm going to choose, we're going to move it under sales. As soon as I do that, you'll see that my cost center now, marketing, is under sales. So again, this was rolled out a while back. It is definitely, it's back, and it's awesome. It is something we were happy to have back into the system and working with no errors. A couple other items, and we'll go back to our hamburger menu. And so this is a new option in a report, and it's a last day paid. So if I go ahead and go into payroll, and I go to my reports, I'm going to go into my pay statement history report. Notice it's opening up a chart, and I'm showing this pay history report in the new UI, but this is, these items that I'm talking about now are available in the classic view. So don't be worried you're not going to have this. You are going to have it. And in some of the information that we sent out, there's some screenshots of this in the classic view. So you can definitely refer back to those. But the idea here is to be able to say, you know, I'm looking at June's payrolls, but, you know, this is a lot of data. Maybe I just want to look at, you know, how much my gross by pay date for just the last payroll. So it's really just a filter. Here's the last day paid, and this is brand new for December. So if I go ahead and click this, you will see now I'm just looking at the last day, and I can see that Gary is the only employee that I paid in December. Probably a big red flag. You know, but you actually are able to drill down and use that last day paid. But that we took it a little bit further than that, and we said, okay, well, you know, how can we add this into the payroll process and use this also there? So I'm just going to go ahead and go back to my dashboard really quick, and I'm going to go into my payroll dashboard. So from here, you can see that I've got, is kind of loading some of these other charts, but the one I want to look at is finished. So we're going to focus on our finalized payrolls. So if I want to know, okay, which employees didn't get paid, and maybe there's a reason they didn't get paid, and maybe we want to make some edits in the system if they haven't gotten paid over a period of time. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a finalized payroll that I've processed. I'm going to drill down into this payroll, and I want to take a look at those employees not paid. Report. As I drill through this, you see these charts and graphs are giving me some information, but I can see that by adding a column into this employees not paid report, I'm able to see that, hey, Daryl hasn't been paid since November. Maybe he's on leave of absence, you know, or you know, and his status isn't set, you know, the way that it should be set. So, you know, as you're going through the payroll process, you know, adding this column is going to give you that information. So, you know, why is this employee not paid? Maybe they're terminated, you know, and they just haven't been terminated in the system, or, you know, whatever the reason might be, you're able to pull in, you know, what their last day paid was. And maybe it's to be expected that they shouldn't have been paid and there's no action that's needed, but having the ability to look at this is very valuable. And so we were excited to get this. All right, so obviously there was a lot of additional information, or additional kind of tools and bells and whistles that was released in the December, you know, release. Definitely a push toward the new UI and new functionality, you know, around that. You know, so we're excited about the new UI. We are sure that you will be excited about it. You know, I think we do have a couple questions, Liz. If you want to go ahead and take over, you know, and we can definitely address any of those questions.
Definitely. Just as a reminder, if anyone has a burning question, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. That's all. Know what you're looking to find out more about. But someone did ask, can we build charts, or is that what BeyondPay will help us with?
So that's an excellent question, and you absolutely can build these charts. So if you went, you know, and you changed your .login to .hcm, they're not difficult to build, you know, at all. But BeyondPay, we will help you, and that's kind of the benefit of being that early adapter, is to go ahead and start rolling this new UI out. We're going to roll it out, you know, and configure it at no cost. So, you know, definitely you can, and yes, we will help.
Great, thanks. Another one that was asked is, what if I like the charts, but I also like my old dashboard with the start buttons?
So if you're using the start buttons, then well, the answer is you will still have access to your old dashboards. It's not decided on how long, but definitely you are going to have access to your old dashboard. If I open up my hamburger menu here and I hover over the bottom, you can see that I've got some options here. I'm just going to go back to home here. Oops, excuse me. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and click on the dashboard button. It's bringing me into the old look, basically. So if you like these start widgets, then you can still access them.
Perfect. That's all for today on questions.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys, and definitely reach out to your CSR or respond to that, to respond to the survey at the end of the webinar, and we'll go ahead and get this started for you guys. And thank you for attending.
Misty, a really important question I think that would benefit the group just came in, asking, can we give access to system administrators before rolling it out to their managers?
Absolutely. Yes. So, within security, and Jonathan touched on this a little bit in the October webinar, but yes. So there's some security settings that we would actually turn on, and we could just turn those on for company administrators, and then you would be able to use that .hcm and actually access the system for admins without giving access to other users.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thanks everybody.